to Analysis with me, Jonathan Steele. Over 300 bodies were found in one of the largest mass graves in Bosnia and Herzegovina. They're believed to be the victims of the Prijedor Massacre, carried out by Serb forces between 1992 and 1993. At the moment, bodies are still being excavated at the Tomasica site. Last week, a news team from Analysis went to Bosnia to investigate the story. And on today's Bosnia special, we will bring you exclusive footage. And over the next hour, we'll be discussing whether the excavations at Tomasica can bring justice to Bosnia's Muslim community. In the studio with me is Kemal Pervanic, a survivor of the Omarska detention camp and a human rights activist living in Britain now. Leist QC, senior criminal barrister, and by Skype we're joined by Dr Marko Hoare, a historian at Kingston University. But before the discussion, here's a report by Flaminia Jambalvo.
Hidden for nearly 20 years, a mass grave near the northern Bosnian town of Prijedor now lies open. Teams from the International Commission of Missing Persons are confident they have discovered one of the biggest mass graves from the deadly civil war that gripped the former Yugoslavia in the early 1990s. As of early November, the remains of over 300 people have been found at the Tomasica mass grave. For those like Sudbin Music, a detention camp survivor, this is a particularly difficult place to be.
I was a normal young boy, 18-year-old, and at the best moment in my life, at the end of 20th century, something unacceptable happened to us.
As the secretary of Prijedor 92, an NGO that supports families of former detention camp detainees, his daily job is to liaise between forensic teams and community members.
My neighbor, Hassan, was exhumated. They found their documents in a jacket. And 2 hours later, I went to downtown, to city center. I met his mom. She asked me, Sudbin is something new? And I answered, no, Shuhra, nothing's new. It was too hard for me.
Many travel long distances, hoping to put their loved ones at rest. Selima Gazma has just arrived from Sweden after being told that the remains of her late husband might have been found.
Once I'm certain of his death, I can finally move on with my life.
Rumors about the existence of the Tomasica mass grave have existed for decades. But in the absence of witnesses to provide information in regards to its location, local authorities decided that it was not possible to begin with the excavation.
The first houses are only 100 meters from here, and the whole houses you can see are Serbian. But how it was possible that we don't have information.
Bengt Nürnberg, a journalist for the Swedish state broadcaster SVT, already in 1996 had reported on its existence after finding a few Croat witnesses living in a nearby village.
One of them had also been a close friend to a Serb who worked in this mining complex of Tomasica, and he had heard through him horrible stories of killings, etc. And this went on through the summer of 92 and the summer of 93.
Witness statements have now established that this grave originally contained 1,000 bodies.
The location was dropped in 1993. The brown soil that you see at this site was brought here in order to cover the crime which was committed at this place.
Bosnia's ethnic conflict was brutal, inhumane. As Yugoslavia disintegrated, Serbs, Croats and Bosniaks fought for control of the land. In the region of Prijedor, where this grave has been found, it has been established that it was Serb forces that were responsible for most of the deaths, as they forced out Croats and Muslims. A UN report, based on a population count dating back to June 1993, shows a decrease of the Muslim population from over 49,000 to just over 6,000.
So far we found some evidence which indicates that people were thrown up from trucks. Also we found a number of shell cases which indicates that this wasn't just a place of mass grave, but it was a place of execution as well.
More than 1,000 people are still missing. The depth at which the bodies were buried means that many of the bodies were preserved in a mummified state, potentially providing some of the best evidence as to the crimes committed in this area. Jafik Nusrat, a local police officer, is collecting evidence on the abduction of bodies.
Tripoli, year 1992. I was standing right there. There were many people whom I worked with before, when I wasn't a policeman. I found many of them here and identified them. I hope it will be proven that a genocide took place here. We did not deserve this to happen to us.
Tomasica's account of indictment on many high-profile cases before the ICTY. These include former Bosnian Serb leader Radovan Karadzic and Bosnian Serb leader Ratko Mladic, both accused of genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. However, the uncovering of Tomasica has opened a new set of questions as to who carried out the orders.
We have so many persons which were involved in these things who are now famous politicians. One of them is a parliament member who is coming from here. How it was possible that he doesn't know anything, and at this period he was an officer of the Serbian army from this area.
The uncovering of Tomasica has opened the old wounds of the country's violent past, though many remain hopeful that this could be an important, painful step towards reconciliation. Plaminia Jambalvo, Islam Channel.
Kemal Pervanic, why has it taken so long to really start excavating this grave if it was already known about as early as 1996 and perhaps even earlier than that?
Well, at the end of the war, there was really no will on part of peacekeeping forces to gather information about such locations. They said it wasn't part of their mandate. And ever since these events took place, there's been a conspiracy of silence in the local Serb community. I mean, this mass grave was located about 50 meters from the nearest houses. And as Sudbin just said, former leader of Serbian Democratic Party, Mr. Bojic, he actually comes from the village which is next to this mass grave. So even over the last 2 months, this place is so close to our town, the local Serbs refuse to accept these facts. They refuse to accept even after so many bodies have been discovered. So it's, I mean, I don't really know what's going to happen over the next...
How do you feel yourself having seen these pictures which we've just shown? I mean, you could have been there yourself.
Well, I visited this location twice last month, and I've just felt, gosh, this could have been me. It's because I've never been to a location like this before. And I mean, all those people who were killed at their homes and brought to this place, or those executed at this site, they were civilians they were not perpetrators of any crimes. Even then, you know, there should have been due process. People shouldn't have been just executed. And
when you were in Omarska camp, did you have any idea that this was happening just down the road?
Well, one of my neighbors survived Omarska with me, and he said that he overheard some camp guards speaking about this location, that people who were killed in Omarska were buried at this place. But no one took him seriously. Some people even laughed at him when he spoke about this in 1993.
Well, Ian Leist, let me come to you. I mean, we showed pictures of Karadzic and Mladic just there sitting in the Hague. I mean, do you think this will change the indictment and make it more clear that there was genocide?
Well, there's a count on the indictment that charges genocide against them both, naming municipalities outside Srebrenica, where, of course, there have been convictions for genocide. And this evidence now available in Prijedor is clearly relevant to that attempt by the prosecuting authorities to prove genocidal acts, a genocidal intent, a policy to exterminate the Bosnian Muslims. And we wait and see what evidence will be put into a proper form to introduce in the trial. I'm sure there'll be an attempt now to do that, because the barest facts of the discovery of this number of bodies, which you've heard of, have been remarkably well kept. Therefore, there's going to be some available excellent scientific evidence, one would have thought, as to the way that they've been executed. I think it's very compelling evidence, not only in itself, but also to rebut any defence that people didn't know, there wasn't a policy, that this suggestion that there was a genocidal policy in existence is just wrong, is very powerful. And so it's, in terms of a prosecution, it is capable of being the most powerful, excellent evidence that one would introduce both as part of your own case if you were a prosecutor, and also to rebut any defence that may be advanced.
I mean, it is actually, this community of Prijedor suffered more than any other part of Bosnia.
Yes.
Even, I mean, Srebrenica, because people came from different communities and municipalities, it wasn't just one village.
Yes, and it's very shocking to see. I attended myself the 15th anniversary of the Srebrenica massacre in 2010, and it was incredibly moving and dignified occasion. And of course, people were struggling in their own way to come to terms with what had happened to loved ones, some of whom were being recently discovered in graves a long time after the event. And so this find is going to, I think, inevitably reopen wounds. People will inevitably revisit things they've tried to come to terms with over the years. You've heard what's just been said on the television and in the studio. But the main thing is the truth is told. The main objective is, first and foremost, to use this incident, one would have thought, as an emblematic example of exactly what took place during these years.
Sometimes the perpetrators now giving evidence, or is it only survivors and families of victims? I mean, are some Bosnian Serbs actually coming forward to say, I was a guard here and I saw this, or I was a driver and I saw that?
That is proving very difficult to do, I think.
Well, actually, the tip-off about this mass grave came from two former Serb soldiers, and one of them participated in moving those bodies, those remains, when they were killed at their homes to this location, or if they were killed in a different place. So the Commission for Missing Persons have revealed this information, and one of the guys said, I just can't hold it in any longer, I have to talk about this. And so that in some instances, somebody comes forward and says, I know a location of a mass grave, I need a new roof on my house, and it has happened for real in the past. And in this instance, these two individuals didn't ask for any favors. So one of the two committed suicide about 2 weeks ago. He jumped off a bridge in town. He just couldn't bear it anymore.
Marko Hoare, let me turn to you. I mean, do you think this means that the people who actually committed these crimes in Prijedor can now be identified clearly and brought to justice?
The problem is there a will to do so? I mean, sort of 12 or 15 suspects from among the Bosnian Serbs have actually been prosecuted by the ICTY for crimes in the Prijedor region, but it doesn't mean that justice has been done. I mean, many of them received very short sentences or were let out early. I think there's a general belief among ordinary members of victim communities, the Bosniaks and Croats, that they haven't really received justice and that this won't change anything.
I believe you took part in the preparation of the indictment of Karadzic and Mladic, or Milosevic perhaps as well. I mean, do you think that they should now revive the indictments of Karadzic and Mladic and bring in these Prijedor events?
Karadzic was recently, he was originally acquitted on one count of genocide in municipalities around Bosnia, which include Prijedor, and that acquittal was then overturned. So he's actually been prosecuted for crime and genocide municipalities throughout Bosnia. So this certainly is additional evidence for it, and I certainly hope you'll be convicted.
And what does it mean for the International Tribunal on Yugoslavia? I mean, it's beginning to come to the end of its life, isn't it? Will the indictments be able to be, will the trials be able to continue fully to their end?
Yes, they will. I mean, the trouble is it hasn't had a very successful record. I mean, many of the biggest criminals were not even indicted. Milosevic, of course, died before his trial could be brought to conclusion. Krajisnik and Plavšić, two of the leading Bosnian Serb war criminals who were convicted, received relatively short times in prison. They were both let out early. I mean, Plavšić served 7 years, Krajisnik served 13 years. So there's a sense in which it really hasn't done a very, very good job.
Would you agree with that, Ian, Leist, that it could have been better?
Well, I think it's always a valid discussion to have. What exactly is the justice that people are seeking, and what can be achieved in cases such as this? I think it's almost impossible at the end of any series of trials of this nature, of this historic nature, that everybody's going to be satisfied that justice has been done. And the best that the international community can do, or any state can do, is charge the main perpetrators and hope that by bringing the organisers and policymakers to justice after a trial in which all the available evidence is aired freely and open to scrutiny, that people will buy into that process and somehow achieve their own closure, because individual crimes against individuals, it's highly unlikely that they're ever going to be tried or some form of proper sentence passed. And in that sense, these trials of such a extreme nature have limits to their outcome.
I believe that 6 Bosnian Serbs were acquitted in the last few days and will not be retried. I mean, does that make you feel that the tribunal in The Hague is really falling down on what it should be doing?
Well, this is different. I think these people were tried in Sarajevo and they were convicted. I don't understand legal details, but apparently they were tried under a legislation which is no longer applicable. But I read this morning that they should be retried. But I think the Hague Tribunal has done a lot for former Yugoslavia, and I think every person who was indicted was brought to some kind of justice. However, I do feel a bit uneasy when we have people like the first president of the Serbian parliament, Krajisnik, who served out his sentence in the UK, and when he applied for an early release, he accepted partial responsibility. He said partial responsibility for what happened during the war. However, just a few weeks later, he turns up as a defense witness for Karadzic, and he denies any responsibility. And I find that really troubling when we talk about, the future of Bosnia, when we talk about reconciliation, that it's happened with others as well. I think even Biljana Plavšić, she was a member of the Karadzic circle, and she was one of the post-war presidents of Republika Srpska. She admitted in court that she participated in the crimes she was accused of. Once she came out, she was met by the president of Republika Srpska, the current president, and she's been saying that she actually sacrificed herself for the Serb people. Basically, she denies, after being convicted, after admitted in court, that she's responsible for any crimes. And I think, the Hague Tribunal issues very short sentences, and I think every person convicted should serve out those sentences in full, not being released after 5 years, like one of the guards in the Omarska camp. He was in the tribunal for, I think, more than 5 years. He was convicted for 5 years. He was out before he was sent to prison. And I can see him when I go back to my region. I can see him in the street.
But, obviously the judges don't really explain their decisions, but there is this pattern. Why do you think there is this pattern of relatively short sentences, even though people have been convicted of these incredible crimes?
Well, I would like to say again, the Hague Tribunal has really done some really good things for us, but I don't think that the Hague Tribunal thinks about the people from former Yugoslavia or people from Bosnia, about how we feel. And they even claimed in the past that through this trial they were helping the process of reconciliation. And I think, well, if you neglect the victims, if you just bring them in court and use them for X numbers of days, and you just, send them back home after that, and they're not part of this process of justice anymore, it's a real shame. It's a missed opportunity.
Let me come back to you, Marko Hoare. There is a political crisis going on in Bosnia. I mean, do you think that unless that is resolved, it will be impossible really to achieve reconciliation in Bosnia?
Absolutely, because the problem is that the feelings are exacerbated by the fact that people can't move forward in Bosnia. The country doesn't function as a state. The constitutional structure imposed on Bosnia by the Dayton Peace Accords in 1995 make it impossible for the country to function. So obviously in this constant sort of power struggle between Serb, Croat and Bosniak politicians, there is no way in which feelings can be overcome and the country can move forward. It just keeps all the wounds alive.
You mean the Dayton Agreement sort of divided Bosnia de facto, if not de jure, and therefore you cannot get people to work together properly?
Exactly. It divided the country into two entities, and then the Muslim Croat Federation into 10 cantons, and this multiple layers of bureaucracy and these different structures just prevent the country from functioning. And effectively, the Serb nationalist leadership in the Republika Srpska exercise a veto of any kind of functioning of the central Bosnian state, and they don't want Bosnia to work as a country, so Bosnia doesn't work as a country. And because of this Serb veto, the federation cannot really go forward. It can't go into Europe. It can't make the economy work. So for all these reasons, people, particularly Bosniaks, see that their country is not being allowed to work by this Serb nationalist regime in the Republika Srpska, which gets the support from many of the same nationalists who supported the war. So you can see that wouldn't allow reconciliation to be possible, really.
Well, thank you for that. We've come to the end of our first segment. So thank you, Marko Hoare, thank you, Ian Leist, and thank you, Kemal Pervanic, who I think is staying on for the second half when we will be looking at the wider issues of the future of Bosnia and whether any bridges can really be built between these three communities that went through this incredible civil war 20 years ago. So stay with us.